Hi everybody, hope you're well. Well done on getting paper 1 out of the way. Hopefully that's a relief. This video is to help you get ready for paper 2, which is coming up on us pretty fast. It's next Thursday, 16th of May. Hopefully that's on your radar. I'm pretty sure this is an afternoon exam as well, so you can factor in hopefully having the morning to get a little bit ready for it, unless you're unlucky and you've got another exam there as well. So this is aimed at you if you're doing thematic studies. So I'm going to give you a few tips. I'm going to go through a couple of things that are a little bit different about paper 2 that you won't have seen on paper 1. And with a bit of luck, that will get you nice and ready and you'll know exactly what to expect. So let's start with that. What's different from paper 1? So the main thing is you write your answers in a slightly different format here. With paper 1, there's gaps after each question to do your answers. You won't have that this time. You'll have an answer booklet and you write all of your answers in that. Okay, the reason for that is because you're choosing which themes you're answering on. So paper 1, you just answer everything. But on paper 2, you're answering on the 4 themes that you want to answer. So you might just have studied 4, you might have studied more than that, but on the day you pick 4 to do. And I'll say more about that in a minute. The other thing that's different is because it's thematic, you've got choice over which religions you write about. That's mostly true. There's a couple of times where you've got to be a little bit more specific, but again, that's coming up in a little bit. And then the other thing is on 12-mark answers, you can refer to non-religious views in paper 2 to give you a contrast between religious views. I would stress this, you can, but you don't have to. It's an option for you. And if you're going to do it, you definitely need to talk about religious views as well. You're just using the non-religious views as a contrast. So for example, what you couldn't do is answer the whole of a 12-marker from the point of view of an atheist. That won't work. But I've got a little bit more on 12 markers coming up. Right, let's talk about the themes. Now, every year, I worry that people aren't going to get this right. On the paper, there will be 6 themes. A, B, C, D, E, F. We've got them in front of us here. You are going to answer 4 of them. Now, this decision might already have been made for you because you've only studied 4. That will be the case, I think, for most people. If you've done more than 4, you have to pick the 4 that you're going to do. Do not answer more than 4 themes because you will waste time and you will not get any marks for doing the extra. So you choose 4, you answer 4, you ignore the other 2. That's how it works. So the next thing that I want to just give you a little bit of help with is 4-mark questions on paper 2, because in many ways they look like what you're familiar with. They look like the sort of 4-mark questions that you'll have seen on paper 1, and you answer them in a similar way. So I would always recommend doing 2 short paragraphs. But you've got to have your wits about you on paper 2, because sometimes they're not always asking for the same things, and you've got to spot certain words that might be used. So, for example, in 2019, this was one of the questions. Explain 2 similar religious beliefs about reconciliation. In your answer, you must refer to 1 or more religious traditions. So what that means is the word similar means that they need to agree with each other. They need to, well, we've said it there, they need to be similar, but you can't make the same point twice. So they need to have something in common, but they can't be the same point. And then 1 or more religious traditions. What this means is you've either got to do 2 religions, or you can do 2 beliefs from the same religion, as long as they're not the same. So you can do 2 Christian denominations, you could do 2 schools of Islam, 2 schools of Buddhism, whatever you like there. But 1 or more religious traditions means you've got to have you've got to be really specific about which group of religious people you're talking about. It's no good just to say religious people, because the examiner's going to be like, which ones, and you're unlikely to get any marks. The other word that they sometimes like to use in 4-mark questions is contrasting. So here's a question from 2021. This is off of theme B, Religion and Life. Explain 2 contrasting religious views about how the universe began. In your answer, you must refer to 1 or more religious traditions. So 1 or more religious traditions means the same as what I just said. But contrasting, sometimes people think this has to mean opposite. It doesn't have to mean opposite, it just has to mean different. So we're not looking for similar beliefs anymore, we're looking for a real point of difference. They can be opposites, but they don't have to be. And then this is the kind of question that tends to throw people, because there's a lot going on in this question, and if you don't read all of it, you can miss things out. So this one's from 2020. Explain 2 contrasting religious beliefs in contemporary British society about the status of women in religion. In your answer, you should refer to the main religious tradition of Great Britain and 1 or more other religious traditions. Okay, let's break that down. So contrasting means different. We've established that. Contemporary British society means Britain today. So they're not asking about what was it like in biblical times. They're not asking about what was it like at the time of the Buddha or the Prophet Muhammad. They mean the world we live in today. And then the main religious tradition of Great Britain, that means Christianity, because Christianity is still the majority religion in Great Britain. Now, the question will not say refer to Christianity, it will say refer to the main religious tradition of Great Britain, because they want to see that you know what that is. And then, because you've done Christianity for 1 point, you've got to do a religion other than Christianity for your other point. So I would say this is one of those times where your choice is a little bit restricted, because to get the marks, you're going to have to do a Christianity point and then a different point as well. Okay, so that's the little pitfalls to look out for on 4-mark answers on paper 2. 12 markers, they're very similar to paper 1, but there's just a couple of things that I want to put on your radar. My top tips would be specific, use specific religious examples, try not to be vague. When you're making an argument, use quotes or teachings to back it up. So use that knowledge to help you make your arguments. Super important, use each quote only once. So what you can't do, and I've said this in previous videos, don't just bust out love thy neighbour for everything, because it will only be credited once. On the subject of quotes, also don't make quotes up, because they won't be credited and the examiners will know you're doing it. If you want to use non-religious arguments in a question like this, so the one we've got on the screen is religious believers should never fight in a war, you can do that, but I would only do it to create a contrast with religious points of view. So I wouldn't just do the whole thing from the point of view of non-religious beliefs. That won't get you very many marks. So look at the wording. It says you should refer to religious arguments and you may refer to non-religious arguments. You don't have to bring non-religious arguments into it if you don't want to. And then justify your conclusion. Come down on one side or the other of the argument and say why. Use evidence to back that up. Don't just say something like, overall, my opinion is this because I think it's the strongest argument. Why is it the strongest argument? You've got to give reasons. Okay, we're nearly there. These are my top tips for when you're writing about religious beliefs. So this is going to happen in your 4, 5 and 12 mark answers. The green box is how I would start sentences. This is how I would look to do it. So you can swap in whichever religions you've done. I've used Christianity and Islam here just as an example. But you can see what I'm doing here. Some Christians, most Muslims, certain Muslims, a minority, some denominations, many. I think it's better to do that because that shows that you understand that there's diversity and there's variety within religions. you would struggle really to find many things that all Christians agree on, or all Muslims agree on, or all Buddhists agree on. There's a lot of difference. So by doing it this way, you're showing that you understand that. I wouldn't do the things in the orange box. So I wouldn't start sentences with religious people believe. The question will say, what do religious people believe? But the answer needs to have specific religions in it. That's how you get the marks. I would avoid saying all Christians believe, because like I just said, you're going to struggle to find many cases where that's true. Muslims believe, Christians believe, Buddhists believe. You can do it, but it might come across as quite vague. So it's better to avoid that, I think, because it's a bit too broad. And then the last one, which I find particularly triggering, Christians do X because it is their religion. Don't say that, because you're saying nothing at all there. Well, all you're really saying there is Christians do things because they're Christians. Well, we know, but why? What's the meaning? What's the purpose? What's the belief? What's the teaching? Right, finally, remember you've got to bring black pens. Hopefully you're used to that by now. Read each question at least twice, and remember there's going to be some long questions. Like there could be quite a wordy 4-marker that you need to look at very, very carefully. Because you're in the answer booklet, you need to write your question numbers in the margin. You don't have to do them exactly in the order it says, but just make it clear which question is which. Anything you cross out won't be marked. So if you put lines through it, it will not be credited. So think carefully before you cross loads of stuff out. Use paragraphs to help give your answers structure. So I think 4, 5 and 12 mark answers should be structured in paragraphs. Be specific rather than general. So that's referring to the tips I gave you just now about some, many, a few, rather than all. Keep an eye on the time because it will fly by. The timings, by the way, are exactly the same as they were for paper 1. So you've got 25 minutes per full question. So what that breaks down to here is 25 minutes per theme. And then finally, if you have access arrangements like extra time or rest breaks, think about how these are best going to work for you. And remember, if you have these arrangements, there's no prizes for not using them. So think about the best way to use them. That's it. Good luck. I'm happy to take questions on any aspects of that. Just leave something nice in the comments. Ask nicely and you're more likely to get a response. But remember, you've got this, you've worked hard, it's going to be fine. Well done, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you soon.